Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Kinnear, and we are here today for more courageous conversations. The whole purpose of courageous conversations is to have uh, conversations with people who are living everyday life, navigating their own self doubt, stepping into their confidence, stepping into their courage in just daily living. And so today I'm so excited to have Robin here with us. Thank you, Robin, for being here. Robin is a friend and former colleague of mine from Google. And today we're going to be talking about some hard things that you have been going through, Robin. So thank you for being here. Thank you for even stepping into this courageous conversation to be able to talk about things when some of the changes are still fresh. And you were one of the folks impacted by Google's big layoff recently. And so I know we were talking about what to do because that was quite a jarring experience for you. So can you just
Mhm.
start there? Tell us about what happened and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So, thanks for having me. It's great to get to chat with you. I was at Google for 10 and a half years. And so I woke up on a Friday morning with apparently many thousand other people completely locked out of all Google systems, and just told you no longer have a position. So after having been at a company that long that claimed to be so much about googliness and being connected and being respectful, that felt really jarring and really disrespectful. It was, one of the first things I thought about was like, oh, I had literally just gotten my congratulations 10-year Google plaque and it's sitting on my desk at work, and I have been told under no circumstances to appear and collect my stuff. So it was sort of like, just keep that, was sort of my first thought. It just really felt just really, really tough. The other thing that I sort of thought that first day, the position I had switched into was being an administrative business partner. And so my role was eliminated. Having been a teacher for most of my time at Google, none of the teachers were laid off, because that's not really something they can do. They need a certain amount of adults for children. And so one of my other thoughts was, well, great, if I hadn't made this switch, I would still have a job and I would still be there. And so that was also kind of a really hard feeling. I was still somewhat new to my other role. I was coming up on 2 years, but hadn't quite made it. And it just really didn't feel good in multiple respects. One of them being, you know, you didn't get any chance to say goodbye to anyone, to finish out any projects that I was in the middle of, to close any loops, to contact anybody. Most of my contacts were through my Google work stuff. And so even finding ways to say goodbye to people I really cared about was really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's it. You got cut off from all of that, right? Like no emails, no personal contacts. I mean, even if you wanted to reach out to people, did you even
I didn't even
know?
know how in some ways,
Right.
yeah, or
Right.
what they would want or what felt appropriate, or
Yeah.
and I think on the flip side, many other people who were still at the company felt the same way. They got cut off from people they knew. Someone, it may have been through a coworker who I had told, if people ask you, like, just check in with me, but you can probably give them my contact info. And someone had tracked down my phone number and like sent me a really nice text message about how much they cared and how like shocked they were and how it was super unfortunate. I don't even know how that person found my phone number. So there were definitely people that went above and beyond to really let me know how they felt about me as a person and me as a coworker, which was great. But there were plenty of people I would have liked to have said, like, hey, I really valued the time we got to spend. I have no idea how to get in touch with them.
Yeah.
If it's either like I vaguely remember their last name, but only sort of, so I don't know how to find them on LinkedIn, or yeah, it was just really complicated.
Well, the two words that come to my mind just even hearing this is disorienting
Mhm.
and betrayal. Like the feeling of betrayal, because I know from working at Google, and like the whole don't be evil, and it's all about collaboration and teamwork and transparency, and that is just infiltrated through the culture and has been for since the
Years, yeah.
inception. And
Hmm.
so for it to come to such an abrupt end felt like maybe there's been a value shift.
Hmm.
And I know even from talking to people who have remained at Google that that value shift has rattled them for
Yeah.
those who have stayed. And I know and that's what I'm hearing from you also, like
Mhm.
to be given your 10-year anniversary award, and then to be let go in such a way.
Mhm.
Um, and I understand you actually checked your personal email before logging in, like
Yeah,
some
it
people
was
didn't.
Yeah, it was well, so I woke up, my kids frequently get up around 6 and I just happened to be up really early that Friday morning because that's what they do. And I went to check my email and I thought somehow I had hit the like merge inboxes thing where like I had my personal account because it was on my phone and my work account, and you can do it where it all just shows up in one long list. And so I saw this weird email from Google and I was like, "Oh, I must have hit the merge inboxes button accidentally. Like, let me switch over to my work profile." And my work profile was just gone. It just wasn't there. And so it was like, wait, what? What is this email then? And that was where it was like, yep, it was in my personal email. Like, you are no longer employed. We have locked you out of everything and like done. So it was not a great way to wake up on a Friday morning.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, so I want to talk about betrayal, but first, before we do that, or talk about that, not even just betrayal, but like the emotions that come in this state of being, before doing that, what, I'm hearing you are going, I don't know how to reach out to other people. Sometimes I don't know how, sometimes I maybe know how, but I don't know what to say.
Mhm.
And I know for the people who have remained, they may be sitting with similar questions. I
Mhm.
don't know what to do about my colleagues who just got laid off. And they may be scrambling, trying to pick up all the pieces of everything that's been left off.
Mhm.
What, as somebody who is in the position that you're in right now, like what is it that you would want your former colleagues to know or to do?
I think this is a place where some people are going to feel really differently, but for me, it was so nice and so validating to get those um, random text messages. People found me on LinkedIn, sent me messages. One of the teams that I used to support, they got together and made me a kudo board. That kind of stuff just like made me feel a little less dispensable. Like, oh, like it feels terrible and I no longer have a job and I don't work at this company anymore. But like the reason that I was there, which a lot of times was the people, the great people that I worked with, the great just coworkers. I really enjoyed the last team that I was on. It felt like a place where there was still a lot of that googliness going on. So that was the stuff where it didn't have to be long. It didn't have to be a lot. It was just and people I didn't necessarily expect to who have found me and reached out and said like, I just wanted to let you know, like it was amazing working with you, whether or not they included like an anecdote or not, like just feeling that like, okay, I wasn't actually completely dispensable to
Yeah.
me, like meant a lot. There was a lot of crying that happened, which, I think is natural for a lot of people. And sometimes it's hard to go back and read those things because it still just feels like I still, I had that connection in that moment and those people sent me those messages. And like now, several months later, everything has kind of gone silent.
Yeah.
So that's a piece that I would let people know. Like, if someone really touched you, make sure to let them know that because it feels like you've been abandoned and dropped. So, if there's and some people may say like, that's great, I'm not in a place to hear that right now. And that's okay too. But I think leaning more towards the give it a try, send the message versus don't say anything would probably feel better for them. I think the other piece of it is, now several months in, if you haven't talked to one of those people in a while, it would be nice to hear from them again.
Yeah.
Because it just does feel like, and the life has gone on, everyone has had to move forward. People now have jobs where they're probably doing 1.5, 2 times their work because they let all those people go. And I get that. But if you have a minute to, and you really, if what you felt like in the moment is still how you feel, it's great to continue to remind people that you're there and that
Yeah.
you're able to support or and maybe you're not, maybe you're so buried in work that you can't support, but still saying like, hey, I'm still thinking about you. That's all it takes.
What I'm hearing, Robin, is just acknowledgement.
Mhm.
Acknowledgement of, I see you, I'm still thinking about you. Any kind of acknowledgement in whatever way that can be offered, even if it's just a hey,
Mhm.
I was working today and I thought about you. Hope
Yep.
you're doing all right.
Yep.
Little touchstone so that it doesn't feel like everything has gone dark
Yeah.
in some ways.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people may be able to offer more than that.
Yeah.
Hey, if you need anything, or,
Mhm.
if you want a recommendation, or can I do anything for you on LinkedIn? That's
Yeah.
an extra mile.
Right.
Or, hey, I was thinking about that funny experience that we
Mhm.
had, that's
Yeah.
extra mile. But it sounds like even just saying, hey,
Yeah.
thinking about you
Yep.
is,
Yeah. Even that is better than nothing.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because we can tell ourselves lots of stories
Right.
about why people are not
Yeah.
reaching out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me more about the emotions. Like, what has come up for you and how have you navigated those emotions?
Definitely been the entire gamut. I think a lot of it would be akin to like a grief process. Obviously, no one died, so it's not that dire. But this was a big part of my identity for a long time, and maybe part of that was on me, not being a little more realistic that Google is a corporation, and so in spite of some of the things they said, at the end of the day, they're still a giant corporation.
Yeah.
And I think this was a reality check that like yeah, they said a lot of things about don't be evil and don't do this and don't do that. And yet at the end of the day, that was the choice they made. And there's been a lot of reports about, they probably didn't have to do that and they still have record earnings and all these things. So it's like, it's hard to be on the outside now and say all of those things are true and you still did this and you still did it that way.
Mhm.
That's really disappointing.
Yeah.
So, definitely felt betrayed, felt upset, felt angry. On some level, because I wasn't working with children anymore, and that is a big part of who I am and things that I miss. It was also kind of like maybe this was the cutting off of the golden handcuffs, as people call Google a lot of times, a way to kind of kick me into doing something different that I probably wouldn't have done otherwise. I'm
Yeah.
also not sure that that's going to work. And so it's a very scary place to be, wanting to try something new and branch out, but also like, am I going to be able to pull this off? I have no idea. And I don't have, the backup plan of Google Healthcare and all the like I have to find a gym which I haven't done in 10 plus years.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's a bunch of perks that I got very used to that I'm now having to figure out like, well, what do I do now? What's next? And how am I going to make that work without some of the other supports and balances that our society has made some choices, and healthcare is tied to your employment, and that is tricky for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also
Definite.
some definite like on some level some relief. I've heard many other people getting laid off on maternity leave. People who are here on a work visa and now suddenly their entire life is scrambling. Like that to me feels so incredibly unfair that they were given they uprooted their entire lives based on some promises that got made and some expectations that this company wasn't going to do that.
Yeah.
So feeling lucky in the sense of I'm in a very different position than some other people, and that it's, I'm mad for myself, but I'm really mad for them,
Mhm.
because I have other resources to fall back on, but a lot of people don't, and that's just, it's really disappointing that a company where one of their big mantras is "Don't be evil," that feels really evil.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and what I think about is trust, and how so much effort was being put into trusting each other, trusting the culture, trusting the company, trusting,
Yeah.
and every trust is an opportunity. It's a vulnerable experience. It There's something at risk when we do lean into trust, but that trust was there for over 10 years. And then how one act, it was a massive act, but that one act suddenly went from, this is a place that I can trust, to this is just another corporation. And that happened for all of the employees. And when trust like that gets ruptured, it's going to be interesting to see the aftershocks. And it's things like what you're describing, people on maternity leave, people on other kinds of medical leave, people who have just immigrated and to this country who then suddenly now need to scramble. All of those impacts, those are earthquakes and reverberations. It's going to impact trust for a long time to come. And I'm so sorry that you were caught in that. And I'm sorry for all the other people who were caught in
Yeah.
that too. Yeah. Yeah. So, I know this because I worked with young children with you, and so much of what the work we do with young children is supporting them and managing not managing, but feeling through their emotions, I would
Yeah.
say. Um, Knowing that emotions are things to be felt, and that can be really unpleasant
Mm-hmm.
and really hard, especially when they're emotions like anger,
Mm-hmm.
emotions like grief,
Mm-hmm.
like fear. Um, so what do you do to kind of keep yourself moving forward when those emotions show up? Because they often show up inconvenient times,
Definitely.
inconvenient ways, like everything about it is just like super unpleasant.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and unfortunately, I'm battling the added pressure of I had to have shoulder surgery 5 weeks ago. So, I'm recovering from that. I'm dealing with the annoyance of I really didn't want to do that again. So I'm sitting in a lot of feelings right now. And I try to not just, I try to feel them because there's no way around it. And this is what we talk about with kids too, like identifying the emotion, trying to like recognize what you want to do with it, how you want to acknowledge it. Or I think generally we encourage children to acknowledge it, not, because that's just not a great way to move forward. And so yeah, like it has come up at some pretty inopportune times. You know, got laid off on Friday. I was going on a weekend trip with some friends that have driven down from Utah that night. And so it was like, I really don't want to do this right now. Like, literally just lost my job. I just want to sit at home and wallow. And I didn't. And it turned out, it was a fun weekend. And so I'm glad I did that. But parts of it felt hard, and it felt like I kind of had to say, like, right now I have to kind of set that aside. Like, I'm not ignoring it, but I need to come back to it later because like I'm here doing this other stuff, and that's what I have to do right now. The other, the bonus of having kids is like there's times where you have to say, I can't cope with this emotion right now. I got to put it away because I have to, finish bedtime, or I have to help my kid through this tantrum about the fact that his left shoe, he only wants to wear it on his right foot, like, random stuff like that. But I really try to sit with it, analyze it a little bit, think through it a little bit, and know that it's natural. Like, we all have complex emotions. That's a very normal part of being. And I think it's handy to have worked with children where they go from one emotion to the next with lightning speed. And you're like, what just happened? And sometimes adults feel that too. And so knowing that you can have more than one emotion at once, I can be really angry and say, like, I'm grateful that I don't have some of those other confounding pieces that other people are experiencing right now. I can be angry that I don't have a job and relieved that I have some support and I'm not, scrambling every second. So, definitely experience the emotion, thank it for being there, think through ways to channel it into something else sometimes. I'm not a big journaler. I know a lot of people do that, and that really helps. It hasn't really been one of my coping strategies, but mostly just sort of letting myself feel whatever it is. And also not sort of, the other thing that I've read a bit about grief particularly is not searching for a silver lining every second. Because that is another way to sort of just like push a feeling aside and not acknowledge it or work through it. This experience isn't great. It felt bad. It still feels bad some days. I'm hopeful that my next venture will get me a little bit back to my roots of working with children and families, but I didn't want to do it this way.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I can feel all of those things at once.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and what I'm hearing is you are, I'm hearing a lot of things. One, you're holding two opposing emotions kind of at the same time. You can be angry and also really grateful. You can be really sad and also have joy. So those two things can coexist. Talking about the transitory nature of the emotions, that just like you notice in your children or in all the children that you've worked with, emotions are going to come and then they're going to go, and then they're going to come and they're going to go, and so you're not going to be stuck in it forever. And it's not necessarily, it's sometimes when the emotions comes, it's like, not now, we got bedtime. However, I'm not going to ignore you. We'll get in
We'll
line.
get back that. Yeah.
Get in line. we got teeth that need to be brushed and
Yeah.
stories that need to be read, but I
Mhm.
trust that you'll come back and we'll have time. And that there's nothing wrong with the emotion being present.
Mhm.
That it's actually better if it's kind of allowed or given some space or given some permission to exist.
Right.
And without having to shift it, without having
Mhm.
to silver lining it, without having to kind of force it into some kind of fairy tale narrative that, we will find our happily ever after. It's like, no, we're in the dark part now. And that's okay. I'm
Mhm.
not going to stay here.
Yep.
I'm going to keep finding my way out.
Mhm.
But it's okay if it sucks right now.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So what, are there, now that you're thinking about what that next thing is and still being kind of fresh off from the layoff, are there any thoughts or any, struggles that are present for you right now?
The thing that's really tough right now is I came up with what I think is kind of a cool idea. I was a G2G, that's Googler to Googler parent coach, and I really enjoyed doing that. And I think there's a market for it. However, it's a lot of like, who's going to want to talk to me? Like, what makes me the person that they're going to want to connect with? A couple of the best messages I got post everything were from a couple parents that I had helped a few times, and they're like, I can't believe this. You were the best part for me for Google. Like, this is, no, we can't. And
Mhm.
so I think there's a market for it, but I also am like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to make this work. I have never, like, this isn't my strong suit. The stuff I'm going to have to do to bring this to fruition is like kind of scary, because like, I don't know any of these steps, and who's really going to want to pick me over all the other, there's a lot of parenting stuff out there. So like, how am I going to get a foot in the door?
Yeah.
And in spite of, I think there's a funny meme that I saw a while ago where women tend to read like a job description, and they have, the preferred qualifications. And it's like, well, I almost sort of did that, but like that one time that person got mad at me. So clearly I'm just like, cannot apply for this. And guys are like, I mean, maybe I did that in high school. So yeah, clearly I can sign up for this. And so I don't know if that's definitely like a gender thing, or if like society has put certain pieces in our heads, but I definitely feel that of like the master's degree in early childhood education. I worked for 10 plus years in preschool settings with infants and toddlers. I am raising two of my own children. I have many extra qualifications past that. I can be a parent coach, but there's that piece of like, but why is someone going to pick me? Like,
Mm.
who's going to want to talk to me about it? I'm really good at it. I've gotten lots of great feedback. So that's a hard piece to get over.
Yeah. Can I offer two things?
Yeah.
One is that meme is not all wrong. That in fact, in my imposter syndrome talk, I talk about how there was a study done where I think it was at Hewlett Packard, where women would wait until they met 100% of the criterion for the next level, for the next job or promotion or whatever, before they applied. And for men, it was 60% of those qualifications, so just a little bit more than half. So it's not exactly wrong. It is pretty gendered from the research that I have seen. And there's lots of reasons why too. I mean, we can get into that, but but the thing that I'm hearing you kind of wrestling with or kind of switching back and forth on is like, hold on a sec. I have all these qualifications. I have this experience. I have this feedback. I have this expertise. I do have these skills and abilities. That's like one side. And then the other side is going, yeah, but how am I any different than anybody else? Nobody's going to want to pay attention, right? And so I think anytime stepping into entrepreneurship or anytime stepping into something new, anytime stepping into any new kind of position or endeavor, that struggle between those two voices, almost like devil and angel on your shoulder, is that tension is going to be there. And the question that I think about is like, what are you going to believe, and where will that belief lead you? Because I know for me personally, I spent a lot of years believing that I wasn't good enough, and it did not, it only brought me to very bad, painful places. Only. And the more I stepped into, maybe I do know, maybe I always have room to grow. I'm not going to know everything. I may not be the best, but I do know this about me. That has only led to better and better things. And part of what you described is exactly what you can do when that voice comes up that says, who are you? You don't really know anything. You're not no different than anybody else, is to remind yourself of the things that that voice can't argue with. What are my I do have this training. I do have this degree. I did receive that feedback. I do have, do you know what I mean? It's like, this is the proof. This isn't, I'm not making this up.
These are quieting the devil, quieting the negatory guy on the shoulder. Yep.
That's right. That's right. And sometimes we have to remember that again and again and again. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Robin. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. I wish you all the best in all the families that I trust that you will continue to help, because I've seen you help them for part of that decade. And I trust that more will come, and wishing you all the best as you adjust to this new norm.
Yep, it's definitely an adjustment.
Yeah. Sure, for sure. Thank you so much. And to anybody watching, if you are interested in having a courageous conversation with me, please reach out. I'd love to connect. Thank you.